again, welcome to the AWS Modernization Workshop with SecoCI. My name is Sam Olukotun. I am a Solutions Engineering Manager here at SecoCI. And joining me today is Eugene Mu from AWS. Eugene, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hi, my name is Eugene. I am a partner solutions architect with AWS. Been working with CircleCI on creating this workshop with them, and we hope you enjoy. Yeah, I'll toss it back to Sam.
Fabulous. Thank you, Eugene. In today's workshop, what we'll be talking about is how you can apply DevOps patterns to the modernization of your software delivery. And today, we all know that the world's best software teams, well, at CircleCI, I would like to say that they use CircleCI to deliver quality code with confidence. And as the largest continuous integration and delivery platform out there, CircleCI empowers engineers to seamlessly take ideas to execution and to do that at scale. And so as part of the workshop today, what we're going to be learning is how to deploy Cloud9 as an IDE. And we're also going to be setting up project repos in CircleCI, and then creating a CI/CD pipeline that does automated testing, does security scanning, builds some Docker images, takes advantage of infrastructure as code using Terraform, and additional to that, then deploys those applications. Furthermore, we will be integrating some third-party services into the CI/CD pipeline. We'll be taking in Snyk for app and container image scanning. We'll be using AWS ECL to push a Docker image that we build within the pipeline. And we'll be using Terraform to codify and provision AWS resources and infrastructure. The way all of this breaks down is typically when we run this workshop, it takes about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. However, today we're going to be moving fast without breaking anything, and we should ideally get all of this done within 1 hour. So the nature of software fundamentally has changed. Teams and organizations these days are releasing code at a record-breaking pace, and things are only getting faster. Now, this is primarily attributed to the fact that these teams are adopting and implementing modern practices and modern concepts, such as continuous delivery, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and DevOps into their software development processes. Now, all of these practices and principles together, they require automation to perform these tasks consistently, reliably, and quickly. And this is where CircleCI, a continuous delivery solution, comes in to help developers achieve all of this while bringing a robust, powerful, and easy to use automation platform. So CircleCI fundamentally enables developers to easily automate their manual tasks. It allows them to bring continuous delivery practices to life and to focus on what really matters to them, which, as we all know, is quickly releasing quality code and doing that at scale. Lately, we've noticed that building the future of technology is becoming more challenging than ever. Our tools and the platforms we're trying to build are becoming more complex, and they're doing more and more things. Not too long ago, you'd have a single developer on a team who could understand and conceptualize the entire tech stack of what they're building. However, today and every day, software developers are delivering value on a mountain of dependencies that go far beyond what any single engineer will be able to master today. And this is where CircleCI comes in. Our platform was built by a team of DevOps experts who understand how critical CI/CD is to your entire development process and to your business as a whole. The best software teams know that speed, focus, and consistency of delivery make the difference between good and great. This is why we build CircleCI to deliver on these promises so that you can deliver on your promises as engineers as well. The promise being to reliably bring the best and the highest quality products to your customers. With all of that said, you might be asking, so what is CircleCI itself? For those who don't know, the world's best software teams use CircleCI to deliver quality code with confidence. As the largest continuous integration and delivery platform, CircleCI empowers engineers to seamlessly take their ideas from execution to execution and to do that at scale. Our platform has been optimized for developer productivity, for developer speed, as well as for developer confidence. At CircleCI, we understand how engineering teams work and how their code runs. Companies like Intuit, Apple, and Spotify use CircleCI to improve their productivity, to release better products and to help them get to market faster. As a company, we've been named a leader in cloud native continuous integration by Forrester in 2019 and in 2017, and we ranked 242 on Deloitte's Technology Fast 500 list. As part of the prerequisites for this workshop, you would need to have a GitHub account set up. You would also need to have a Snyk account, CircleCI account, Terraform account, and AWS account. Now, just as an overview, you will be creating a config file on CircleCI. You're going to have code snippets to add to that config file to help you build out that pipeline. But before we get to all of that, I will pass control back over to Eugene to talk you through the setup for the workshop.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And Sam, I think Gabor has a question. So before we go into that, he wanted to ask by what measure is CircleCI the largest SaaS CI/CD platform?
So that is based on the number of cloud builds we do per day. Currently, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but we're doing over 1 million plus per day. And over at the end of the month, we're going over 30 million plus builds per month. And that is what puts us as the leading CI/CD cloud provider.
Thanks, Sam. And yeah, so I think also, Sam, sorry again to ask you to request this, but could we also just, could you create a poll to just see how many people have actually have an AWS account that they're able to use today?
Well, okay, I don't
And
know.
I will share this poll real quick, or sorry, I will share my screen real quick so we can see this. So Sam, I think if you're not able to do that poll, what I kind of want to just walk through is for the people that are attending the workshop today, we will be kind of create, you will need an AWS account to kind of run through some of the scenarios today. And if you are a little bit worried that that might incur some costs on your end, I wouldn't worry too much because we also have the ability to request AWS credits that will pay for your that will pay for the infrastructure that we are provisioning today. So I think with that, we'll start off with the setting up your AWS account. At this point, I am assuming that the attendees here today that you have an AWS account to work with. If you do not, I recommend, so what will happen is we will record the session and any of the themes and the topics that Sam and I will go through today, you can go through at your own leisure if you don't have your AWS account. So if you don't, I still highly recommend you to stay on and kind of learn the concepts because there's actually not going to be too much programming or like writing scripts. We have all that done for you. We just really want to talk about kind of the concepts that make CircleCI so easy to use to kind of deploy your software. And so with that, I'll just kind of briefly skim through some of these setup instructions. So if you need to have a AWS account, you can create one. And there is a bunch of kind of links that we have set up so that you're able to do so. But yeah, so this is provided that you are that you do have an AWS account. And with that, I'm going to kind of share my screen a little bit here. What you really want is to also have a user that has we would typically say you don't really need to have administrator access, but for workshops like these, it's just easier so that you don't run into any permissions issue. So for example, if you have something like this, you want to be able to generate a user with the administrator access policy. And again, this is all described in detail to kind of walk you through how to set these up if you haven't done so already. But moving past that, we'll go into the CircleCI sign up. So in order to kind of get the credits to get the credits for your AWS account, we recommend you to go onto the CircleCI sign up. And actually, I just realized that we haven't really sent this out to the attendees. So let me do that real quick. So this is the CircleCI actual the workshop page. And so what we're going to do here is you're going to visit the CircleCI CD and AWS Marketplace link. So I've already subscribed to this, but you just go into try for free. And while I'm doing this, yes, it will tell me that I'm already in use. But what you'll see here is that you're going to first, you'll need to sign into an AWS account. So everything is really tied to having an AWS account for this workshop. For the 14-day free trial, and I'm assuming for for the folks that don't have CircleCI set up, this is what it's going to look like. You'll configure your software contract. You'll click the CircleCI plan free trial, and then you'll click the create contract button right here. And so after you do that, you won't be charged. And so one of the good things about this contract, if you read through it, is that you will not be charged after the free trial is over. So there isn't like a kind of a gotcha to get you to kind of pay CircleCI more. But this is to kind of make sure that you have a free trial for you to kind of like play around with CircleCI. And so once you kind of see that, there's going to have the option of auto renew. You're going to that, which is set to no, and then you're going to accept the contract. There's no fee for today. You're going to click the accept contract button, and then you'll have successfully sign up for CircleCI, and then you'll go into the setup your account. And so once you get to the setup your account, you'll start your free trial by kind of entering all this information. But then you'll actually go to you can also actually go into the sign up link. And so this is where having the GitHub account, if you did not receive the pre-event communication, please let us know. But this is why having a GitHub account is also really important, because it's really easy to sign up through everything via the GitHub account. So once you have done that, you should be able to kind of go to your CircleCI dashboard, and here's mine. And in my dashboard, you'll see some of the things that I've been working with. I've been playing around with the workshop that we've created, but you'll see all the different types of projects that are in your GitHub account shown on your projects dashboard in the CircleCI app. So next we come to the credit request page. So after you signed up for CircleCI in the marketplace, you're going to request credits. Similarly, again, you'll have to kind of put down your information, and then what's important is that you'll have to put down your AWS account ID, and your account ID is going to be right here. So it's going to be a 12-digit number at the top of your screen. You'll say in your My Account, and then you can just kind of copy this and then put this into the request credit page. So it will take a bit of time for you to get the email confirmation back. So again, if you haven't requested credits before this event, what I recommend is for you to keep following along. And then once you actually get the AWS credits, then to kind of go through the steps as you would, and then you can use this recording as a guide. So what we'll do is we're going to set up a workspace. And so Cloud9 is our cloud-based integrated development environment, which I will show you how to kind of set up. But the cool thing and the reason why we really use Cloud9 is to make sure that everyone's local machine all kind of has like the same binaries dependencies installed, because every single one of us probably have different things installed onto our computer. And so this is a cloud-based like local machine that you can use for kind of using this workshop. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Cloud9 dashboard. You'll see that I already have a CircleCI workshop opened up, but what you'll do is you'll create an environment. So I can call this CircleCI workshop 2. We'll go to the next step. And then you can choose T2 micro, or you can choose T3 micro. I'm going to use T2 micro because it's free tier eligible. So if you, again, are worried about cost, if you choose this, you won't even need to use your AWS credits, because there won't be anything to kind of pay for. And so for now, we're going to have everything set to default. Please make sure that you're using Amazon Linux 2 as the operating system. And I'm going to go quickly into kind of the network settings here. So currently we have the subnet set to no preference. What we're going to do instead is we're going to just click US East 1A, US East 1B, and US East 1C. And the reason why we're doing this is because US East 1E has an issue where there are some instance types where they are not available. So if you do see an error, that is probably going to be the reason why. So we'll go to the next step. Oh, whoops. I think there might be something I did not do. Let's do this. Sorry, give me 1 second. I think I know what just happened. I just got signed out. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask in the chat, and we'll be happy to respond. So now that we're here, we're going to review. We're just going to make sure that we're using the proper subnets, we have the right instance type, and we're using the right platform. And so with that, we'll create the environment. And so it's going to look something like this. It's going to take about a couple minutes to really start up. And while we're waiting for that, the instructions are all here set up for you. And then we are also going to be creating an IAM role for this workspace. So this IAM role is going to be attached to your EC2 instance that's hosting the Cloud9 environment. And what that generally does is, like, if there are anything that the Circle CI, well, Circle CI is not going to really require this IAM role, but we want to just have it there in case you want to play around with your Cloud9 instance for anything else that you might want to provision through the terminal of the Cloud9 IDE. So that's still being loaded. So instead, I'm going to kind of come down here, close some windows, and we're going to go to our IAM. So again, I've already created the IAM role of the Circle CI Workshop admin, as you can see right here, but you can create the same thing. You'll be using AWS service, you'll use EC2, you'll go to permissions, and then you're going to search for the administrator access policy, and then you're going to click the left-hand checkbox. You can add a tag if you want, and then this is where you can kind of name it Circle CI Workshop admin. So as you can see, I already have one that exists, so I won't be able to create it, but this is the steps of how to create an IAM role. And so with that, we're going to go to, and because Cloud9 is hosted on EC2, we're going to go to our EC2 dashboard. We're just going to check out some of the instances that are currently running. And you can see that there is a Cloud9 EC2 instance running. And so what you'll want is you'll want to go here, and then you're going to want to click action. You're going to go to security, and then modify IAM role. And then you're going to want to put Circle CI Workshop admin, the IAM role that you just created. And then you're going to click save. And so, and with that, what we want to also do is now that we've attached an actual IAM role, you want to go into the top right-hand corner where there's this little cog. This is your preference. You're going to do a couple of things. You're going to go down to the AWS settings, and you're going to turn off the AWS managed temporary credentials. So Cloud9 has a way to manage like the credentials that you have, but because we created one and we manually attached it, we don't need the Cloud9 IDE to really do that for us. And one other thing I do want to mention, and you'll see this in the next steps, but since I'm already showing you right now, I'll might as well just kind of show you anyways. But in the top left-hand corner of the actual Circle CI of your project kind of like dashboard, your file system, there is another cog, and you're going to want to click the button show hidden files. And the reason why we're going to do that, and Sam's going to show you, is that when you actually pull down the repository, you're going to see that the config YAML that kind of powers the entire pipeline the Circle CI pipeline is going to be created in a file in a folder called .circleci. And so what I want to do here is I want to grab this text. And so I'll explain this as we kind of go through it and let everything install. So essentially what we're doing is we're just installing a bunch of different things. The JQ command line tool, YQ for YAML processing. We are going to be removing our existing credentials because again, we now have a IAM role attached to our instance that has our AWS credentials to allow us to work with the different services in your account. We're going to set the account ID and the region. Typically, or sorry, not typically right now, but we are going to be using and focusing on the US East 1 region. And then we want to make sure that we validate that our IAM role is valid. So we're going to just make an STS call, and then we're going to make sure that the EC2 instance that is hosting this client instance has the Circle CI Workshop admin attached to it. And what we'll do is that it will echo IAM role valid, or it will echo IAM role not valid. So let's see if I did everything kind of correctly. So when we see that the IAM role is valid. And so with that, that is going to set up your Circle CI Cloud9 workshop instance. With that, I'll also pass it back to Sam, and he's going to talk about setting up Circle CI. So Sam, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll pass it back to you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Eugene. And may I get a quick thumbs up if you can see my screen now?
See your screen.
Awesome. All right, in this section, we're now going to be talking about setting up the rest of the services that allow you to integrate with Circle CI. And first off, we're going to be setting up our Snyk access token. And to do this, you want to visit your Snyk account, go to account settings, and then the API token section. And just to show you what that would look like, here I am logged into my Snyk account. What I'd want to do here is go over to the right, go to account settings. And in here, you can click to show the key, or if you don't have one, you can revoke and regenerate a new one. Next, after that, we will be creating an API token for our Terraform Cloud account. To do that, if you've not created a Terraform Cloud account yet, you want to create that. You want to create a new Terraform organization within the account. And to show you what that would look like here, if I'm in here so this is the organization I have created already for this workshop. You could create a new organization if you wanted to use that to try this out. And next, then you'll be creating two cloud spaces, one named App AWS Circle CI and the other ECR AWS Circle CI. And for each one of these, you want to click the CLI-driven workflow option. And let's work through that here. We could say add new workspace. And you would want to take this option here, the CLI-driven workshop, give it a name, and then you create. After that, you want to copy the Terraform API tokens that come up and put that in a secure location. We're going to be needing that later when we go into the Circle CI platform, adding the environment variables on Circle CI. Next, we want to create our AWS access keys and secrets. And to do this from the AWS console, you want to navigate to your user, go to the security credentials tab. For a visual, this is what that looks like on my end. I go over here, go to my security credentials. And from here, you can create access keys. Also, again, you want to save that access key. You want to save the security. You want to save the access key ID as well as the secret key ID that you'll be coming out of this, because you're also going to be using that for the environment variables on Circle CI when we get to that step. Next, you want to set up SSH with your GitHub account. This is what will allow you to pull the code from GitHub into your Cloud9 environment. And to do that, if you don't have an SSH key yet, you want to generate one first, then copy that key to your clipboard. And within GitHub, you want to add this to your settings in the SSH section. And
so actually, Sam, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick right here, is that, so a couple of things. One, the reason why we need to have an AWS access key is so that Circle CI has the permissions to kind of provision your entire CI/CD pipeline. Right. And, provision infrastructure and do whatever it needs to do in order to kind of create that pipeline. And then the second thing here is this GitHub, forking the example project. So in order to kind of use Cloud9, the Cloud9 IDE instance, you can't just use it. You can't just HTTPS clone a GitHub repository. That's the reason why we have these extra steps. And so, Sam, do you actually mind if I show the attendees like how they would actually do this?
Certainly.
I want to make sure that everyone is covered well. So yeah, let's kind of go into this right here. And so we have this example repository that you will fork over. So it's part of the CircleCI public organization. So let's kind of fork it. So I see that there's already quite a bit of forks. So typically you'll just go into this button. And so I already have this repo forked into my GitHub accounts, but that is how you'll do so. And so with your Cloud9 IDE instance, what we'll want to do is we need to establish an SSH key. And so what we'll do is we have everything kind of set up for you. The example email right here should be your email that you log into your GitHub account. So for example, like you don't want to just click enter with that, but you'll want to actually use the email that is associated with your GitHub account. So you'll click, you'll type enter 3 times. You don't need to type in anything here. And so what you want to just kind of check for is making sure that we have something in our SSH like folder. Hey, look, so we now have authorized key. We have a public key. So we want to use this. We want to make sure that we get this public key. And so again, we have the command to do so. So you'll want to copy this public key right here, and then you'll go into your GitHub account. You'll go to your settings. You will go into your SSH and GPG keys section. As you can see, I have a lot, right? And so what you'll do is you'll just create a new SSH key. You can type in whatever you want. You can say CircleCI Workshop, and then you can copy and paste that key like this. And then once you add that SSH key, you'll be able to kind of link, you'll be able to say to that Cloud9 instance saying like, hey, I approve, I want this GitHub repository to be able to connect to this IDE. So yeah, Sam, sorry for interrupting. I will hand it back to you. And yep.
No worries, Eugene. Thank you. And the next step then would be the CircleCI setup portion. And for that, you just want to add the project to your CircleCI build on CircleCI. And to do that, you will go into the projects section. You'll find the project you're trying to add, and you'll find the setup project button right next to it. For a visual on what that would look like, I will show you here on my CircleCI account. You'll be looking for the projects, looking to add projects over here. And I already have this added as a project for myself here, but if I hadn't, you would see a setup project button right here, and you would click that to set it up on CircleCI. And so that's all it takes to add the project itself onto CircleCI. And next, you want to add the environment variables. So the keys that we've been saving, the Terraform, the Snake, and the AWS keys that we created. And this is where those come in handy, and we have to add them into CircleCI. To do that, you go into find the project you've just added. You can go in here right next to the last build, and you can say the project settings. From there, you find the option to pick on environment variables. And this is where you can add the environment variables you need as name and value. And once that's done, we can now get into the building out of the YAML file and then building the CI/CD pipeline that we'll be using for the workshop today. And as an introduction to that section, we want to just share that the continuous delivery itself is a software engineering approach in which teams produce software in short cycles, making sure that the software can be reliably released at any time without manual or human intervention. Now, continuous integration in the CI and the CI/CD is a software development practice that developers adopt and enables them to better collaborate and communicate around the code while adding consistency, reliability, quality, and velocity to their efforts. Now, we do all of this for the sake of being able to commit, and part of the principles of all of this is that you're going to be committing all code to a shared repository. You want to be writing and committing code often. In addition to that, you want to test code on every commit so that you can surface errors and bugs early. This also leads to the fast feedback loops where things are failing as soon as they're hitting your upstream, your repo, your central repo. And with that, as things quickly fail, you also want to quickly fix and recover from those failed builds. Implementing these practices in software development addresses how teams can efficiently write and collaborate around code. However, these practices aren't actually realized until automation is integrated to facilitate the automatic execution of all of these tasks on code changes. So now this automation executes these tasks, which are defined as a continuous delivery pipeline, which we can also call just a CI/CD pipeline. And CircleCI as a platform provides a very powerful, a robust, and a developer-friendly form of automation that meets developers where they are and enables them to focus on what really matters, and which in our case is always the code. So in this section, what we're going to be talking about particularly is how to leverage CircleCI in automating CI-related tasks, such as creating continuous delivery pipelines, testing code changes, and triggering pipelines. And with that, now we're going to be talking about the core elements of our config.yaml file. As mentioned previously, while walking through the workshop modules, you will progressively build a CI/CD pipeline. And this is going to be in the form of the config YAML file, which we're going to be adding snippets to flesh it out as we go through. Now, we'll provide all of the code you're going to need. All the snippet elements will be provided as part of the workshop. And as we go through further modules, it's just going to copy from here and paste them into your YAML file. Now, the core elements of the YAML file itself that we want to point out here are the executors. Excuse me here. So the executors. So this is the environment in which the job itself is running. And we allow you to use a single executor across multiple jobs. And CircleCI, you can use either Mac OS, Windows, Linux, or we also have Docker containers you can use as your executors. The jobs themselves are a grouping of commands that produce a desired result when executed. I also like to explain this as the logical grouping of the tasks you want to execute as part of your CI/CD pipeline. The commands are the directives to be executed, such as the npm install or unit test execution, and workflows themselves orchestrate how and when jobs are executed when the pipelines are triggered. So to put this all in context, you can think of workflows as being the overarching item here that groups jobs. You have multiple jobs flowing, contributing to a workflow, and jobs are made up of a series of commands, and the commands run within an executor. And this is how all of these concepts are related to each other. The next section, we'll be talking about how to create the beginnings of a config file, and we're going to use that to start implementing an automated testing job. So for our config file, for the key sections we're going to be looking at here is really going to be a job stanza and a workflow stanza. And we're going to be fleshing this out a little bit more in the next section. So to build our unit test job, you want to replace all the contents of your config file by just copy and pasting this snippet right here into your file. And what these sections are doing right now is, first of all, we have the version here, which specifies 2.1. And in this snippet, the version key here specifies which backend version of CircleCI services will process the pipeline. And version 2.1 is our latest version, and we recommend that new customers continue to use this unless you have reasons to be using our our older versions. Orbs key here represents Orbs, which is a feature on CircleCI that encapsulates a shareable package of CircleCI configuration that you can use to simplify your build. As you can see here, you're choosing from a series of partner, community, or CircleCI authored Orbs. And in this case, we're picking Node, Snyk, the AWS CLI, as well as Terraform. You can think of these orbs as a form of encapsulation, similar to the concepts found in object-oriented programming, for instance. The other orbs listed in this example provide the same ease of use in the sense that all of the logic that they implement are written in a different configuration file, And now we can reference them within this config file or share them with any other engineers or other teams or organizations which might be interested in a similar pattern within their configuration. And so if you've not already done that, you can copy this section and paste it in your configuration file in your Cloud9 IDE. And next, you'd want to add the jobs stanza to it at the bottom after you've added the op. In this example, this job we're defining here is the run test key. We're defining this, and that's the name, the run test. And here we're specifying that executor, that environment where we want this to run as Docker. And CircleCI will provide a series of convenience images that allow you to quickly get up and running and minimize the amount of time you spend in terms of downloading the image, as these images have been optimized to run across the CircleCI fleet. And since more developers on CircleCI are using these convenience images, it minimizes the network time for accessing these images as they are cached. It's most likely going to be cached on the machine that you're going to be using for your build. In this snippet, the steps key here now represents a list of the commands you want to execute related to this job. Every item in this list executes an action or a command that accomplishes a goal towards this task of running the test here. A quick call out here, the node install packages key here represents a command in the node of implementation within the job, which installs application dependencies and performs behind the scenes caching of those dependencies, which will speed up the job execution. To put that a different way, what this is doing behind the scene is that it is looking at your node modules, and if those haven't changed from build to build, it uses the cache of the previous install from the node modules. And this saves you time on the npm install step in the sense that if your dependencies for your build have not changed from the last time you built them, you can just use the cache and not need to reinstall everything from scratch. And next, then you add the snippet in here that allows you to run. It's a run block that executes the run unit test command. And in the example here, this block has a property here that's called just the name, and that's a label for this particular command itself. And then the command key is where you specify the command that you want to be running within that job. In this instance here, we're pinning the test results to pipelines that are great. You could use store test results and store artifact keys. And this enables greater debugging and auditing. And the above code snippet here represents a run block that executes a unit test on the code when it changes. So when a developer commits code and pushes those changes to the upstream repo, CircleCI will detect those changes in the push and trigger execution of the directives defined in the configuration file. In this case, we'll be executing the test that is defined in here. We'll be generating the test results, storing them, as well as storing the artifact test results on CircleCI. So what we can do here, if you've not been following along and copying the individual snippets into your editor, what you can do now in this case is just come here and copy all of this directly into your configuration file. And in the next module, we'll be adding more pieces of the DevSecOps integration into the configuration.
Sam, I'm going to pause you right there, and I'm going to just quickly share my screen to show like what that kind of does or what that's going to look like for you to use your Cloud9 IDE. So I've made actually a lot of changes because I've just been playing around, but this is what it's going to look like, right? So if you clicked on your show hidden files, you'll be able to see the config YAML from your project folder. So you'll go here, you're going to config YAML, and this is where we're just kind of copy and pasting. So a couple of things I do want to mention, and I believe Sam called it out, but I just want to reiterate this, is because CircleCI uses the YAML syntax for defining the pipeline configurations, we have to be really careful about the indentation. And so what I would suggest is if you are copying and pasting as you're going along, that's one way to do it. I would recommend that you actually start, for example, I'm just going to delete all of this right here. So let's say I start out with something like this. You're going to start out with just the base, like the current, the leftmost indented or not indented part of the file. You're just going to copy like this. And then as you keep developing more and more, as you keep writing more and more of the actual of the actual steps and configurations, you're going to want to always stay back here. So if I'm running this again, copy and paste would be here. Now, obviously, this would kind of break things because now I have multiple versions. So, let's say I have this, and as we kind of continue and follow along, you have the jobs. Well, jobs is going to look like this. You're gonna copy and paste like jobs. As you do more runs, you'll copy and paste, and then you're gonna go all the way back to the no indentations, and then you'll do the runs here. So I just want to call that out. If you are going through this, kind of piecewise as you're following along. If you aren't doing this, that's completely fine as well. Because as Sam has shown, we kind of set this up all for you at the very end. So if you just really want to focus on learning the kind of concepts, that's another way for you to do that as well. But if you want something to actually kind of copy and paste and kind of read through, you have that option as well. So just wanted to call that out.
Fabulous. Thank you, Eugene. And next, now we're going to be getting into the DevSecOps portion of the pipeline. And DevSecOps itself is the philosophy of developing applications and infrastructure securely from ideation all the way to deployment. It requires consideration of security risks at all stages of the development cycle. And while DevOps teams have historically focused on automating the building, the testing, and the deployment of their applications, DevSecOps includes automating security practices to allow teams to increase security without losing velocity. Now, for this particular section, we'll be talking mostly about using Snyk itself, and Snyk being an open source security platform that is designed to help software-driven businesses enhance developer security. Snyk's dependency scanner itself makes it the only solution that seamlessly and proactively finds, prioritizes, and fixes vulnerabilities and license violations in open source dependencies and container images. And so in this model, we're going to be implementing Snyk using the orb into our CI/CD pipeline. And to pick up from where we ended on the previous model, what we want to be doing here in this particular section then is adding, so we want to build a vulnerability scan job. So this is what we should have at the end of what we've just done previously. And on top of this now, we'll be adding a vulnerability scan job that looks like this. So you can just copy and paste this at the end of your Cloud9 IDE like Eugene showed. And the sections in this snippet are really, again, the run block, which runs the commands in here, and the Snyk scan, which is a command that is from the orb, Snyk orb itself. And in this snippet here, we'll find that setting the fail on issues parameter to false keeps the pipeline moving, even if vulnerabilities are detected. This is because just the default behavior in this case would have been to halt the pipeline once issues are detected. There's also, in most cases, this parameter should be set to true, as I mentioned, so that pipeline does fail and you're alerted to the known or the identified vulnerabilities. In addition to that, the other parameter we're setting on here is the monitor on build, which specifies whether this project will be continuously monitored for new vulnerabilities. After running this command, you can review what it finds by logging into the Snyk dashboard and viewing your projects in there. But since this parameter is set to false for this model, the job will not update into the Snyk dashboard. So once you've added this snippet into your config file, what you would look like then at the end of this module should be here, where you have the run test job that we added in the previous module, as well as now the scan app, security scan, which we're adding now in this module. The next step then is going to be integrating Terraform so that we can take advantage of the infrastructure as code, which is an integral part of modern CI/CD pipelines. It essentially is a process of managing and provisioning cloud and IT resources via machine-readable definition files. Managing your infrastructure as code enables you and your teams, the organizations, to create, to manage, and to destroy compute resources using modern DevOps tools by statically defining and declaring these resources in code. Some of the benefits of managing your infrastructure as code is that it allows you and your team to reduce cost, allows you to reduce errors, it allows you to increase the speed of your deployments, It also standardizes infrastructure provisioning across all instances where you'll be provisioning infrastructure. It improves the infrastructure consistency. This is a direct benefit of being able to standardize your provisioning system. And also it eases the management of your deployed infrastructure and their configurations. At a high level, you can say infrastructure as code eliminates the need to maintain individual environments with unique configurations that can't be reproduced automatically. And this ensures that your production environment will be consistent. So now in this module, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking advantage of infrastructure as code to use Terraform to automate the provisioning of infrastructure and resources, specifically ECR, and to build and push things to ECR container, to the Elastic Container Registry. To that effect, we are going to be using, in our example project repo, we have a directory in there named Terraform, and this houses all the infrastructure as code that you need for this project. The ECR directory in there contains the Terraform code for the ECR that will be provisioning in the pipeline. And we also have a directory for App Runner that contains the Terraform code that you'll be using for the AWS App Runner infrastructure. And in this section, just to show you an example of what the ECR Terraform code looks like, what the change you would need to make in this particular instance is to the organization where you want to put in your org name. For a visual of what that looks like on my end, this is my Terraform file. So here's a Terraform directory that we talked about. And we have the App Runner directory and the ECR directory. For both of these directories, you want to go into your main.terraform, your main.tf file, and you want to update your organization parameter here to be the organization that you created in your Terraform cloud instance here. And so that's where we tie that in together. And for reference, you can go back later through this and look at the different sections or the different blocks of what the Terraform file is doing. But now that we've covered that section of the Terraform code, we're going to be doing the same thing for the public ECR portion of that. And now we're going to try to spin that up from within our Circle CI pipeline. So again, this is what we've had already, our run test, our security scan job. And next, we're now going to be adding the create ECR job. And to do this, you can copy and paste directly into the bottom of your configuration file. Different sections, again, are written down here, and you can go through and see what each one of those individual pieces are doing. But to call out specifically what we're getting from the Terraform orb, and so those are these commands here, the Terraform install, Terraform init, and Terraform apply. Those are commands that are implemented in the orb. And here this one's going to be installing the appropriate Terraform CLI binary into the executor. Terraform init initializes the project in the Terraform ECR directory. And then Terraform apply executes the code that's in the Terraform ECR directory. And then the rest just goes through and goes through what the run commands does. And again, I want to call this out again, the persist to workspace is a special key that allows you to save things from within one job, save it into a workspace and use it in a later downstream job. So when a workspace is declared in a job itself, the files and directories can be added to it, and each addition creates a new layer in the workspace system. So downstream jobs can then use this workspace for their own needs. They can add more layers on top, or they can reference the jobs, the files, and the directories that were added in from the previous job. And so with that said, this is the step in which you want to add the organization, like I mentioned earlier. You want to do that for the ECR folder, as well as for the App Runner Terraform code itself. And once that's done, then we'll be adding the Docker build step to our CI/CD pipeline. Docker, I'm assuming everyone on the call at this point is familiar with Docker, but for those who may not be familiar with it, Docker is an open platform for developing, shipping, and running applications. Docker enables you to separate your applications from your infrastructure so that you can deliver your software quickly. With Docker, you can manage your infrastructure in the same ways you manage your applications. And by taking advantage of Docker's methodologies for shipping, for testing, and for deploying code quickly, you can significantly reduce the delay between writing your code and running it in production. And so in this section, we want to be adding, you learn how to create a Docker image based on the project application. Then we'll show you how to push it to an AWS ECR from within the CI/CD job. The snippet of configuration that really enables that here is the build push Docker image job. Again, you want to copy this, add it to your config in your IDE. And again, this is using a lot of the same steps. We have the run again, and we're using AWS CLI commands in the ops, the install and the setup. New things we want to point out here is the setup remote Docker block, which creates a remote Docker environment that's configured to execute Docker commands. And this essentially provides the Docker executor access to the Docker CLI, which in turn enable a Docker image to build with the Docker container. There's also the attach workspace block, and this attaches that workspace that we mentioned earlier in the previous section. And this is where you'll be able to access the files and the directories that you saved to the workspace in the previous job. And again, we go through all the different blocks within of the different blocks of steps that happen in this command. And here again, we'll be persisting to workspace. We're reusing this key that we had in the previous job. And this allows you to continue to pass things down into downstream jobs. So at the end of that, this is what your config file should now look like. You can just copy and paste this into your configuration file as we move on to the next section.
And so, Sam, I think it's really important to kind of highlight a couple things here. I think we've talked about using, Snyk as a vulnerability scanner. We set up the ability to kind of run like tests, like unit tests that is in our application. And we're using, Docker images in order to kind of push up what we have, push up our application to the public ECR. I think, one thing that I want to highlight is the fact that you don't always have to use Snyk. You can rewrite how you want to, run your tests, and you don't have to push to AWS ECR public. You can set it up. You can push it up to AWS ECR like private. I think all these things are very configurable. And for the purposes of this workshop, we have set these things up because it's easier to do so. But yeah, I think that's one thing I kind of want to call out. So Sam, I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I think the configurability of CircleCI's config YAML and the orbs that are kind of involved are really important in building out a pipeline, not just for this workshop, but for every single company. And every single company is different, right? Everyone has a different type of framework that they're working with. Everyone has a different type of processes that they're working with. But all this kind of runs together is that you get to control what is in your config YAML. You get to control what third-party resources you're using. So yeah, sorry, I'm gonna stop talking and let Sam, the expert, talk a little bit more about this.
Oh, not at all, Eugene. That's a great point you raised there, especially in terms of the configuration and the flexibility of CircleCI's config system. And a big part of that is, while we are doing this demo using the orbs and showing you Snyk and ECR, CircleCI is not opinionated about how you implement your pipelines. And as you mentioned, different teams have different paths to production. There are different ways, different use cases that teams are concerned about. And what the orbs really give you there is the ability to leverage code or configuration patterns that have been used or implemented by other teams or for other use cases that might fit your particular scenario. If what you're doing is drastically different, or if you have different use cases, you're free to, CircleCI empowers you to write those directly into your configuration file and implement whatever workflow best suits your use case. But again, to reiterate the point you make, Eugene, is that yes, this is not a hard-coded, this is not a prescriptive way of doing DevSecOps on CircleCI. This is just an example of a sample implementation that CircleCI enables. Right. And so far, we've covered the continuous delivery related concepts such as continuous integration, DevSecOps, and infrastructure as code. And now we're just going to briefly discuss the continuous deployment section of the CD part of the CI/CD. As continuous integration primarily focuses on software development practices, continuous deployment can be considered the practices that deliver or release the results of CI. So CD itself is the practice of automatically releasing code changes to target environments. And you could also describe it as a strategy for releasing software where any code commit that passes quality assurance and the testing phases are automatically released into the target environments, such as QA, staging, and then finally up to production. Some of the core concepts of continuous deployment are that you want to create release artifacts that you will be deploying. You want to automatically deploy artifacts to your target environments. You want to validate the apps and services that are functioning post-deployments, and you want to monitor the deployments to verify the state and recover if things are failing. So in this particular module, one thing we can do is what we'll be doing is we'll be implementing a build job that creates the app runner instance using Terraform. You will deploy that project to app, you deploy the project container to app runner. You also implement a build job that tests the deployment to ensure it's valid and functioning as expected. And you will also implement build jobs that will destroy all of the infrastructure and resources created by previous pipeline jobs. Now, see that we're up at the hour. Are we good to keep going longer, Eugene? Oh, sorry, it seems like you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we have plenty of time to kind of go through this. So yeah, Sam, just keep taking it away.
Right, fabulous. So AWS App Runner will be the service that your pipeline will create and automatically deploy the project's Docker images to. Now, AWS App Runner, for those who are not familiar with it, is a fully managed service that makes it easy for developers to quickly deploy containerized web applications and APIs, and allows you to do that at scale and with no prior infrastructure experience. And the job that's going to provision that App Runner infrastructure for us is defined in the configuration file shown, configuration snippet here. Again, the rest of this page goes through the different sections. And if you want to get more detail or if any of this looks not as familiar to you, you can come back and revisit all this definition. But this is all similar patterns to what we've seen previously, with the only difference here being really the Terraform install command that we're using from the Terraform org. So with that, you can go ahead, copy this and add it to the bottom of your config YAML file. Next, we want to have a deployment test job. And what we'll be doing here is we'll be adding this config snippet here to set up your test app runner. So this is to set up your test app runner deployment. And so once you add this to the bottom of your configuration file, the next step then would be to create the jobs that are going to be destroying the infrastructure that we created via Terraform. So again, this is the ECR destroy job. You can copy this snippet and add it to the bottom of your IDE. And the bottom of this page goes through, again, all of those different blocks and the different keys in here. And in addition to the ECR destroy job, you'd also want to destroy the App Runner infrastructure we provisioned. So you can also go ahead, copy this snippet and add it to the bottom of your configuration file. And now with all of this said, it seems, or it might feel like we have a complete configuration file now, but we still have one missing piece in that, which is the workflow stanza. So this is where you get to orchestrate the order you want all of those jobs that we've just defined. This is where we get to describe how we want them to run. In this particular instance, we have run test, scan app, and create ECR repo, which will all run in parallel because they don't have any dependencies or any relationships set with them. However, if you notice the requires keyword here that goes through the rest of the workflows, this is what causes all these other jobs to wait for the previous jobs to finish before they kick off. So in this particular instance, the build push Docker image will wait until create ECR repo finishes before it runs, and so it continues down the rest of the workflows. So now you can copy that and add it also into your configuration file. This is what will give Circle CI the direction of how to run all of those jobs together. And one thing I want to call out here quickly is a top type of job called the approval job. And you will see that being used in here for the approve destroy. What that does is it halts your workflow, it halts the workflow and wait for a manual intervention. So it waits for someone to come into the UI and click approve before the rest of the workflows, before the rest of the jobs in that particular workflow run. And this can come in very handy for allowing you to gauge different parts of your pipeline, of your workflow, so that you can pause and have control over when things downstream happens. Also, it gives you the ability to separate concerns of having your developers write your code, run your test, push to staging, and then have the QA team go in, validate staging, and then approve that to be deployed onto downstream environments. So with all of that, this is what your final configuration file would look like. These are all the jobs. So first of all, here's that orbs. Here are the orbs that we added. The orbs, again, are just templatized, are just configurations, chunks of configuration that you can use and share across your teams. The jobs, these are the tasks that you want to run as part of this pipeline. We've defined this in the previous modules. And finally, what we just added is the workflows stanza all the way at the bottom here, which orchestrates how we want all of those jobs to run together. So once you add that into your editor, the next step then will be to commit that and then push it upstream for CircleCI to trigger the build. Now I have all of this in my environment over here already pre-set up. And what I'm just going to do, just for the sake of creating the visual of to see the build, I'm going to have a commit here. Build. Push that. And if we go into our UI here at CircleCI, once this loads, you'll see the jobs start to run here. And this is all the jobs we've defined in that configuration file. And you can click on the workflow view to see how all of those are related to each other. And this is what we mentioned about those 3 jobs at the top running in parallel because they don't have any dependencies or any requirements tying them to previous jobs. And our other jobs downstream waiting for the required jobs to finish. And again, here's that approved destroy job. This one, once our pipeline gets to this step, it will halt the entire pipeline and would have to come in and manually approve it before the destroy app runner and destroy ECR jobs will run. So that's going to take about, looking through the previous runs I have of this, that takes roughly 7 minutes to run. And so while we're waiting for that, we're not going to sit here and wait for my pipeline to run all the way through. I would like to open the floor up for any questions that might come, that have come in during the course of the workshop so far.
Yeah, feel free to ask any of your questions. And so I think it looks like there aren't any questions so far. But I guess, like, one thing I do also kind of want to mention is that we will be sending out, like, again, a recording of this so that you can do it by yourself if you're not able to do it with us right now. And so, Sam, I think one thing I do kind of I personally want to ask is, like, in terms of, like, orbs and the other dependencies being added to kind of sorry, let me restart that question. For, like, CircleCI's orbs, what are kind of like can you talk to a little bit about, like, how orbs are kind of created? And can you talk about kind of, like, are there potential for, like, if there is a new service, like a new kind of, like, Snyk-like service that is able to do vulnerability scanning, but there isn't an orb out for it yet? What is that process like of getting that orb, created so that, CircleCI customers can use it?
It's a great question, Eugene. At CircleCI, we've developed essentially an orb development kit that customers can use for building their own orbs. And that's part of the flexibility, that's part of the advantage that CircleCI offers through the orb feature, is that anyone can write any orb to implement or integrate any third-party service they need into their pipeline. So from the orb registry, you can access that documentation, write any orb you want, and then share that through the public orb registry so that other organizations would have access to it as well.
Thank you. And so we do have one question. It is asking, can you please provide a brief explanation of the ECR role in the CI/CD orchestration process? And I think I can help answer that. So ECR is the Elastic Container Registry. And so essentially it's a repository of different images that you create and that you can send up to the ECR. And so what that really is going to do is going to allow like other people within your organization or within your AWS account to kind of pull down that image, right? To work with the same application. And that's essentially why we are using it as part of the CI/CD orchestration process. So essentially, we're using it as a way to so sorry. We're basically using ECR as a way to kind of demonstrate that, like, we are able to create an image from the application that we're running. We're able to create an image using Circle CI, and we just need a place to kind of like, store that. So other options out there, it could just be Docker Hub. It could be even the private ECR, but we are choosing the public ECR because it doesn't require as much authorization as a private one does, or the Docker Hub does. And again, I know I may sound like a broken record for saying this, but like you don't have to also create like a Docker image, right? Like this entire process is very configurable, and so like you might not even need to have a role for a container. If you have a different type of application where you're not really using containers, like that's okay too. But I think, for the purposes of a modernization workshop, and as a solutions architect at AWS, like, one pattern that we're seeing quite often in a lot of my customer calls is like, companies are trying to figure out how to kind of move away from the monolithic, applications and going into more microservices. And one of the benefits of containers, and the reason why we're showcasing it in this demo, is to show that like, images are kind of lightweight, artifacts that developers can kind of share with each other, or companies can share with each other. And typically, just to go a little bit about containers, is the fact that containers no longer, you don't need to kind of house like the actual operating system that's been abstracted out. So the entire container really is just the application and the binaries and dependencies that really required to run it. That's a little bit outside the scope of what we're doing with this workshop, but just kind of want to give that context. I think we have another question. Oh, thanks for asking. And so, Sam, I think one other thing that I kind of want to ask as well is in the Circle CI dashboard, what are like, can you just kind of show us like what ways that developers could kind of share projects with each other? Like for example, if I want to see your current project right now, would you be able to send me a link to kind of like for me to be able to view it?
Right. For as long as the project is a public project, I could
Mhm.
create a public project on GitHub. I could send you a link directly from the build link and you will be able to access it.
So I think, so yeah, Sam, I think, is your app runner ready? Has it been fully spun up?
Good question. Let's take a look at that. No, it is still,
Still running.
yeah.
Okay, and no worries. And so, so we're still waiting for the app runner instance to spin up. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. If you had any issues like setting up everything, or if you have questions about some of the instructions, please let us know. So I guess I just want to just share this with everyone. So like the ability to kind of like, use the Circle CI is, or to kind of share your runs is you can add team members and you can copy and share this link. So if Sam were to share that link with all of you, he's able to kind of do so. And that's the same thing, I think, from like like an enterprise level, or even just kind of as an open source level, that's how one would kind of do that and share their runs with each other. So just wanted to call that out as a feature. So I think outside of this, one thing that I also do want to mention is that we are going to be making like these like the module in the workshop that we've created today is just the beginning. So if you are in contact with the Circle CI rep, you should probably just kind of check things out as time goes along, because we will be adding more content to this workshop as well. And just so that if there's any new people that are here, I want to showcase that this is going to be the circleci.workshop.io link, and that is where we have the actual workshop content. So you can follow along on that through that link.
And now my create deploy app runner is gone through. And so I can now show you what that approved job looks like. And once it's gone through all of this, what the approved job really does is it halts everything, and then it waits for me to come in here, say I want to approve the destroy. And then this is a step that now tears down the infrastructure that we created in the previous steps. And here we go. Oh, Eugene, you're on mute.
I'm muted again. Yeah, so one thing I do want to mention with that is the reason why we have this destroy, so again, try out like the different configuration options. You don't technically need to add the destroy app runner or destroy ECR steps into it. You can, you can kind of change things out, but with what we're building today, it really shouldn't cost too much. And so with the credits that you'll be getting, should be able to cover everything. There's one last step, actually, and before I go on to the last step, I'll let kind of Sam just kind of finish off his portion of what he wanted to talk about, and then I will kind of wrap things up from there.
All right, thanks, Eugene. So that really concludes our session today on just modernizing your CI/CD using SNCC, using CircleCI, and then integrating DevSecOps. Hopefully through this demonstration, you've seen how you can use CircleCI to automate all the different concerns you might have as part of your CI/CD pipeline. I hope that showing you the ops has also demonstrated the breadth of integrations you can pull into CircleCI, as well as how seamlessly you can do that to empower your team to leverage as many of the vendors that you need for your pipelines. Also with the Terraform integration, you see how quickly and easily it is to provision resources on AWS. And also AWS as a large cloud provider, being able to partner with CircleCI gives you the flexibility and the breadth access to all the infrastructure that you possibly need, as well as the ease to manage it directly from your configuration files.
And so I think with that, thanks, Sam. And I think with that, the last thing I wanted to show everyone is, oh, actually we have one question. They are asking, so when you issue the destroy directive, are you basically telling Terraform to delete the virtual infrastructure environment?
Right, so that's exactly what we're doing with the Terraform destroy command, is it goes through and it destroys all the infrastructure we created with the Terraform apply that we ran earlier in the pipeline.
Cool, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. And so, like I said earlier, we do have, so for example, we have, so I have a couple instances running with the CircleCI workshop, but I just created the CircleCI workshop 2 earlier. And so the only thing you really need to do at this point is you can go to your EC2 dashboard, click on this link. Sorry, not click on this link, but click on the checkbox item here. And then all you really need to do is you can stop the instance state. You can terminate the instance state, and this will prevent you from incurring any more costs. So if you are completely done with the workshop, I recommend terminating the instance, or you can stop the instance. Stopping the instance, again, will not incur any charges. And one of the beauties about Cloud9 is that in the beginning, when we were actually creating one of the instances, there's a 30-minute like timeout option. So if I leave this running for an extra 30 minutes, but I don't do anything with it, then it will automatically hibernate it, which will prevent you from occurring costs. But let me just kind of terminate this right now to kind of show you that it's really easy to kind of do that. And so it's shutting down the instance. And if you were to go to your Cloud9 IDE, you'll see that it will soon be no longer available. So if I try to open this, it's going to give you an error. You're unable to access it because it's currently being terminated. And I'll redirect you back. And so after that is actually done, what we can also do is we can just also delete this instance right here. And from that point on, you will basically no longer be incurring any costs because everything that we've created and provisioned today, we've also deleted. So yeah,